If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, which is what I'm doing right now. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Now download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Yes, download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started now. Thank you. This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on Facebook. You can see our Facebook address where we're running live on the bottom streaming. I'm with Sticky. Where are you guys right now?
We are sitting in my apartment in Cleveland.
Yep.
In Ohio. Cool.
Yeah.
So, welcome. I'm in New Hampshire.
Oh, wow.
In my little home studio with all my gear.
Nice.
That's pretty nice. I like the blue hue.
Yeah, I got all my synths standing behind me. They're giving me my courage. But so yeah, let's get into it. I know you've got a brand new single, but I like to go through and to kind of talk out the questions I've sent you, and then we will focus on your brand new single as part of this whole conversation.
Fantastic. Awesome.
So I always ask, sometimes I only have like duos on or singer-songwriters, and I got a full band, so I don't know who wants to answer this first, but I always ask the artists I talk to, when did they first get into music? You know, like what age? And so I don't know who wants to go first with that.
Well, we go from left to right.
All right. I got into music. Matt, by the way, I play bass for the band. I got into music in fourth grade. I picked up trumpet because my dad had talked about how he played that in high school. So I got super excited to play what my dad played in high school. I started on trumpet, played that for a bit, and then realized that bass was more fun and cooler. So here we are.
I'm Jared. I play drums. I basically also had it throughout my whole childhood, starting a super young age. Not a super musical family, but it was always around, and picked it up and found my passion in it. Yeah.
I'm Connor. I'm the lead guitarist. I started playing flute in fourth grade.
Yeah.
And then at some point switched to real instruments.
Flutes are really
Like a big wizard.
Yeah.
So then I switched to guitar and bass in high school, and I've stuck with those ever since. More so.
Well, I was a clarinet, so I have respect for that. I started on the clarinet and then went to keyboard, so I get that.
Nice.
I'm Nick, lead singer, and just for as long as I can remember, music has been a huge part of my life. My dad plays the guitar, and there's pictures of me at 1 year old sitting on his lap while he's playing, making up a song about pumpkins. So it's something we've been doing.
That's cool.
I'm Mac. I'm the rhythm guitarist and auxiliary vocalist. I started playing in fourth grade. I started playing clarinet, and then moved over to the saxophone, and then played baritone saxophone for a little while. And then sophomore year of high school, I was doing a lot of writing, so I picked up my dad's old guitar and started to learn to play guitar to just add more to the writing.
Cool. Well, you could have gone the jazz route, but you went the rock route.
I do like playing jazz sax, but
Yeah. So how long have you guys been working on music as in bands? When did you guys first start getting into bands where you're writing your own tunes or doing cover tunes? And I'll seg into the next question, but whoever wants to go with that.
Like us as a band, or when did we all have our first band?
Yeah, I usually like to talk to people how they kind of got into where they are now. So whoever wants to go first.
3 years ago, we started kind of playing around together when I guess the three of us were freshmen in college. He's a year above us and he's a year below us in school. And so we started playing guitar together mostly. It was 5 acoustic guitars, kind of just playing around with each other. And then about a year later, I don't know if one of you guys wants to talk about this, we decided to do Battle of the Bands. And that's when we actually tried to organize ourselves.
Yeah.
One of you guys can take
I feel like all of us except Mac had been in like band situations before, whether it was like Nick playing with his dad's band or Matt and I had bands in high school, as did Connor. Like, and we all ended up playing in those and then kind of letting it go as we got to college, but then finding each other and starting it up again. And like Mac had not really been in one and had just learned guitar and music to support his writing. And like a bunch of us are writers, so that fit in really well from the get-go with us.
So how did you guys like link together? Who was the one that brought the whole band together? Or did you kind of just, how did that story happen?
We have all been members of the same fraternity at some point. I've known Nick since high school. Connor, Jared, and I all joined the group together. And then Matt came in and also joined a year later. So we kind of introduced through the Greek organization. But it was kind of like we had all mentioned starting a band at some point. Like we all wanted to keep music in our lives while we were in college, and we all talked about it. But when we saw the announcement for Battle of the Bands, that was the kick to get going. That was like, this is our opportunity. We should start now. And that's what it was.
So which frat are you in? I'm an Alpha Delta Phi out of Bowdoin.
Nice. We were in Phi Gamma Delta.
Cool.
Yeah.
I get it.
And so we had all, like the four of us had all talked about it and joked about it. And like our school has this Battle of the Bands that often is cover bands and like people playing for the fun of it. But we really wanted to like make something cool. And as soon as Mac got here to school and like became our friend as well, and we realized like we have plenty of guys and no excuses anymore. And then it just kind of happened that way.
Yeah, so that's the kind of another question. Like the question I always ask is like, there's a lot of people that are musicians. They become studio musicians, or they play in cover bands, or they play, weddings. And what makes you as artists decide? You said that you have a lot of writers in the band, but what made you feel like you had something that was enough that made to say or to play that set you apart, that you want to do your own music?
I think musically we come from like very different backgrounds. Not very different, like as different as you can get while staying in the realm of
Alternative rock.
Yeah.
And all of us are like totally different writers. So we just kind of started off showing our own singer-songwriter like solo stuff and kind of just slowly building up as a band and adding our own backgrounds on top of the songs that we had written as solo stuff. And like probably 2 or 3 songs after starting to do that, we were like, wow, we really like the sound of what we're starting to make. So let's start rolling with that. Let's stop focusing on doing covers and let's try to like continue on making our own sound and mixing all of our backgrounds.
And not to speak for any of these guys, but I'm not good enough to be a studio bassist.
I feel like from the jump, we were doing it for fun and seeing where it went. And then there was like a certain point where we could have like called it quits. We put together the set we wanted for like the school Battle of the Bands, and we didn't need to go any farther, but it wasn't ever like a question between us. We were just like, that was a lot of fun. Why would we stop when we're having such a great time? Let's just keep going.
Yeah, the thing with bands, I'm in my 50s and I was playing since I was like 17, and it's that chemistry. Like when I had a 17-year-old basement band back in the 80s, right? It's the chemistry. I had like a 3-piece trying to be like Cream. And that's who I was growing up in the 70s. So like everybody that we wanted to be like the Doors, we wanted to be like Hendrix, want to be like Zepp. And it's just that chemistry when you get your bandmates and you say, hey, we're not just going to do the Battle of the Bands. We got something here, and then then the guys like grow out of it, or they get married or whatever. And then you keep on going. You find another group. It depends on where you're going. But it's interesting. You have so many writers in the band. So my question would be, so when you guys come up with songs, is it a collaboration with everybody, all the writers in the band, or is there like a primary songwriter and then the guys are secondary, or how does it come together? How do you guys like work that out?
Every song is a little bit different. For the most part, to begin with, it was people would show up and say, hey, I have this song. I would like to make it a band song. And then it slowly started transitioning more into, hey, let's go write together. Or I had this idea for a song. Let's all together and try to figure out some parts for it. So it's moved from a more isolated to a more group mentality.
So are the lyrics like written together, or is there somebody focused on lyrics and somebody focused on guitar or bass, or do you guys have specific areas that you focus on, or anybody has an idea and it's like a group vote or a vibe vote, like you feel the vibe, say, hey, that works, that doesn't work? Is that how do you guys like decide?
It's kind of different from song to song. Like these three, I would say, are the main writers. And lyricists, and they'll come up with a chord progression and some words they have with it, or maybe like almost a full song, full set of lyrics, full chord progression, full bridge, full everything. They're like, here's kind of what I have, and they'll show it to the band, and then we'll like just go through it however we feel is good once, and then try to just put in different ideas in different places. We all kind of pretty much just write our own parts.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It's just like it starts from one core idea and we all build from there as we see fit.
So typically when you guys are in a writing session, are you guys working like on a DAW, on a digital audio workstation, or are you working like as a full band unit, working the song out and playing it as a full group, or are you tracking it out on a DAW and being very intricate on all the details, or is it a combination of all of those things?
It's very much just a natural full band. Just keep running it, keep adding different stuff, keep changing stuff until we like how it sounds.
So you'll work it out as a full band, a set, and then you'll go to the DAW and maybe like work.
I mean, what we've been doing in terms of recording is just going in with the producer once we have stuff and have ironed it out ourselves. We're preparing to go in studio in a few weeks. So week have just been like run that chorus over and over again. Just when we get to the end, loop back to the first measure, just like we were playing it through whatever, but it's just like three of us playing for the other two to listen to and figure out their part and make sure.
So like old school, like what I used to do, like what I used to do in '78 and '84. Before I got my little Tascam, and then I moved up to a Zoom R24, but and then a Tascam 24. But that's kind of cool because like so many people I talk today, they're like, DJs. I talk to EDM guys. I talk to other producers. I talked to a band in California that was more like you guys. It was a metal band, and they were like a hardcore metal band, and they're in the garage or in their basement, and they work the songs out. But then they go to a DAW, and then they track it out. But you guys are kind of like what I did when I was younger, which I still love to do that. I still tend to do a stream of consciousness kind of jam band, improvisational kind of Allman Brothers style of recording, which is what I call expansive sound. It's kind of just going and doing it like Sun Ra or something, or Parlor and Funkadelic. Those are my heroes. So I'm going to record in that kind of fashion, and then I'll tighten it up in the DAW. But I really like to kind of track it the old way, which that's really inspiring to see bands are doing that, because that's kind of not the trend.
There's a lot of organic. There's a lot of things you can lean on, but I think we have more fun when we let it happen. Like our shows, whatever, are completely click track free because like it's a lot to hold together, but it's also like if we want to play a song faster or we end up playing a song faster, that's how it goes.
Well, you got the guys to do it too, because you got a 5-member band.
Right.
You guys, like, you got these 3-member units and 2-member units. They got all these backing tracks. They're using, all the Ableton Live, or they're using Main Stage. They got things synced up to their lights. And the one thing about that is like they're kind of locked into a performance, theater, like rock theater, rather than like rock show.
Yep. That's what we want to, like Nick said, all organic. We want to be able to read the crowd and really just put on the show that people are kind of looking for, I guess. And if that means playing quicker or bringing it down and playing a little slower, we just kind of look around, and Matt and Jared and I are like, being the main rhythm guys, are just always throwing each other looks to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Well, I was back in the days to go see Sonic Youth and REM and Huskadoo and the Replacements, and I was a guy that loved the alternative rock of that time period. back in late 80s and early 90s, I was like a big fan of like SST and anything on IRS records. I was into REM before anybody liked them. I was going to see them when there was nobody there.
Nice.
And I was like, nobody understood what Michael Stipe was singing, but I was like, I actually like the IRS records because it's like there was a mystery with that stuff. And then when I actually could hear what he was saying, I was like, well, I kind of like the mystery. But yeah, that's interesting. You guys go to a producer, you go to a studio, and then you put your full record down. And I think I'll probably try to seg into your new songs because you actually have a pretty big producer helping you, a couple big guys. So for your new song, "Speak to Me," maybe talk about how you got that relationship with your producer.
How did that start?
We had like a representative from a local studio reach out. They just kind of have a program where they look for local artists to basically fill their big producers' time, give some attention to people in the local community. Because I mean, we're in Cleveland. There's a lot of like pride of rock and roll here, even if it's not as active as it once was in any way. But like, there's still people getting into it and supporting the scene here. I mean, it is really great. And Jim at Superior there that we got to work with, like, he was great, and he just likes working with these real people making real music in the area. I mean,
that's interesting, yeah, because there's so many people like in the electronic music scene, and some people might think I'm part of that, but I'm more old school. I mean, I don't have a CDJ. I don't show up to the show with my SD card. I show up with my Moog, and then they ask me like, "Oh, you need a sound check?" Yeah, because I got a '74 Moog, and it's like it's got to get sound check, But it's just interesting that you guys were able to get to like a traditional producer. That you work with Fiona Apple, who's like, she's amazing, and Incubus, and then you've got a couple other producers you work with. But maybe talk about "Speak to Me" and how you got that project going, and it's out. It came out on the 10th. I've been listening to it, and I have my thoughts about it. But I want to hear how you kind of got to that song.
Jared wrote the song, and just kind of brought it to the band, and we all immediately were like, "Yeah, that's
it."
We started actually playing it. I used a capo when I was playing it. And it wasn't until we went into the studio with Jim that Jim was like, "You guys thought about taking the capo off and just playing the power chords and keeping that beefy power chord sound instead of trying to make sure that your tuning is all staying straight with the capo up on the 4th fret."
Yeah.
That was when the song kind of started to get like way, way bigger. But Jared wrote it, so he probably has the best insight as to how it came around.
So this was like the first song I wrote probably after we became a band, and it was very clearly like thinking in Nick's voice, because there are both sections that utilize both their voices to like, I feel like great extremes. There's like great notes that Nick hits that none of us could dream of, and then like when we get to the section with Mac in it, and he's like raspy and soulful, like, and writing those parts specifically for them, it was like our exploration of, or at least in my head, it was an exploration of what we could do as a band. Something that's fast paced, one of our most fun songs to play live, just because it's everywhere and going on.
Yeah, what I like about it is it's got this kind of, I don't know if that you got to get upset, but it got a grunge kind of feel. It's kind of got like an Alice in Chains, like Eddie Vedder. It's got that Seattle sound. And I know you're from Ohio, but you kind of got the Seattle thing that it's modern rock, but I hear it, and with your dueling singers, it kind of goes in a couple of ways where it's like Alice in Chains, and it's like a little bit of a Pearl Jam, but it's you. It's something different because you've got this dueling singers, and a lot of those bands were like all like one lead singer. So you've got this new thing going on where you're taking that kind of energy of that alternative rock and making it more pop. But also still having that grunge kind of like authenticity, which I like. What I would say like a punk aesthetic. You got a bit of a punk aesthetic in there, which I like a lot.
Yeah, it's funny that you say Alice in Chains because that was one of the first things that the producer said when he was recording with us.
It's definitely Jim heard that in us, and some of the comparisons of like the voices and the parts we have to that kind of strain of music that existed and got so popular. But we feel like we like tried to make it fun. So like that we've always tried to nail down what genre we are and don't know where we fit in. Like we're modern rock, but where are our influences in that?
That kind of I was segueing to that because that's where I was kind of going. It's like your influences seem to be like modern rock or alternative rock or indie rock. So if you guys were gonna, who are your heroes or who are your reference points? What would you say? Is each member maybe has different? You said you all have different writing styles. So
we could be here for half an hour talking.
Yeah, I guess you guys go for on, but maybe like with this particular song, maybe kind of name check some people you would think. I think I name checked some of them already, but
I don't know about for this song particularly. I definitely say we all have very different like specific idols that we like look up to, and a lot of us had people we grabbed like when we were younger, especially like their music is what we want to achieve. Like a lot drummer who could play some songs, write them. We have like Jimi Hendrix lovers, like Tigers Woe, great rockers. Dio was like one that we really liked growing up.
Dio's awesome.
Yeah. Tried to take from all our inspiration, but it's different for every person, and I feel like that shows when we put our parts together.
Yeah, I definitely can hear it. So anybody else want to chime in on that?
I mean, for me, like songs in like the reggae genre and like bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers that like really utilize the full like ability of a bass. It doesn't really show in this song for me, at least. But that's where I try to take a lot of my influence from. Like it's like Ballyhoo and like I said, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like Flea being able to use the bass the way he can is ridiculous, and I hope that one day I can actually do that. But like those are some of the guys that I look up to. I learned one song that I learned in like high school that I like that made me like fully understand the instrument was "The Chicken" by Jaco Pastorius. And again, nothing like this song, but like those are some of the instrumentalists that I like take my influence or want to take my influence from.
That's interesting because like Red Hot Chili Peppers kind of have this funk thing that I hear a lot of Bootsy Collins. I hear a lot of like funkadelic. They had multiple. It wasn't just Bootsy, but that kind of playing from the funk era. They kind of took it into that type of rock, and it's always cool when people take multiple genres or they take genres you wouldn't think you could fit into. And a lot of some things like reggae and hip hop and jazz, fusion. When those elements get into rock, it makes it really interesting. Because I'm a big fan of the Clash, and I thought it was really cool when they did Sandinista. Because on Sandinista, I mean, you have hip hop, you have new wave, you have punk, and this is a punk band. They're like the biggest punk band in the world, and they decided to go in a different area. That opened up how far they could go because they weren't just stuck into one area. They were able to kind of go anywhere they wanted to. So that's really cool that you're talking about those kind of bass lines. It kind of makes me wonder what your full album will sound like.
Me too.
We're excited. Definitely a lot has changed in that as we've kept writing because we're more comfortable in our sound and experimenting within it. So like there have been songs we do that have like really funky sections of like bass lines, some that stand out. Same with like every part has its moments where it really sticks out and does something like different, but we really like can't escape the sound that we take with all the tone of our instruments and everything because it is us, and it like I feel like comes out in most songs, even when they're a bit different.
That's cool. One cool I love about bands, like a lot of times now you don't really talk to bands because a lot of popular music isn't band oriented. It's more personality oriented. But the one thing I loved in the 70s is like you got a band like The Who. Everybody was an individual, right? Entwistle was like a jazz bassist, and he's just running off and doing like lead bass. And Moon was like like just, going crazy. He's not really keeping time like a normal drummer. He's just soloing through the whole thing.
Yep.
And Townsend was the one keeping the rhythm for the whole band. And so everybody in the Who was like almost going in different directions, but they were able to keep it together with this cohesive concept. And it's interesting, Pete would write everything, but he would let everybody in the band kind of come up with their interpretation of what it really should be. And he would come up with these really tight demos, but then, Entwistle would rewrite the bass line. Daltrey would, energize the vocal. And Moon would just take a simple drum line and turn it into what he could do. And so I've always been very interested when you have, bands that everybody kind of writes, like what you're talking about. That's pretty cool. Where you're not just so you can be very inventive and kind of a cohesive unit that's unique in your individuality, but you come together and it works.
Yeah, we love doing that, coming up with, this is what I have the idea of this should sound like, but do it the way you would, because it comes out, everyone knows their instrument better than others, so it's awesome to see where people take the ideas.
It's kind of good when you don't have a dictator in the band. Some bands, like the history of music, you have some bands where some writers are so into having their own way, they would rewrite everybody's part. And it had to be the way that writer wanted it. And it's cool to see a group where you guys have kind of got this democratic way of saying, hey, if he's the bassist, he's going to come up with the bass. He's the drummer, he's going to figure out the drum.
There are parts that we don't like.
Yeah, I mean,
but we like having to be able to hear everyone's voice in the song, even if you weren't the one that wrote it. Being able to hear Jared on the kit or Mac on the rhythm guitar, you can still tell who's on the instruments.
Yeah, that's cool. It's not all being written by one guy, which kind of can make it a little less exciting. So I like to ask about how you record, but we already kind of talked about that. So I guess the question would be, given what's going on now with Corona, are you able to, put your stuff down in this kind of situation? Have you had to adapt how you get your songs produced? Are you able to get to a studio, or do you have to send everything in through the net, or how are you managing?
So we fortunately are able to get into the studio. We're heading back soon. And basically just have to make sure that we all stay healthy and take our own precautions when we're on our own to make sure that we aren't getting sick and tracking Corona in. So fortunately, we can get back in with a producer.
That's cool. Because some bands I've been talking to around the world, like in Europe, they have in London, they had this rule more than two people can't be in the same room. So none of the studios can operate. Last 2 weeks, I was talking to somebody in London. They were kind of not able to get to their studio without sending stuff to the producer and the engineer, and then they have to send it back. So nobody can. They got a drummer sitting here and a bass player there, and somebody else somewhere else, and they can't get together because they got this rule saying they can't be in the same more than two people. So that's cool they were able to do that, because some places are very restrictive right now. But
this is one way that we're benefiting in Cleveland, being one of the first areas that really shut down when this started kicking up. We're just kind of lucky that DeWine was smart about how he handled this in the first place, so we just kind of get the benefit from that.
That's cool. I mean, it's been a really hard thing because you guys can't do shows yet, right? You still can't do shows.
No.
Right? Yeah. So I guess the other question we like to ask is, given that, bands primarily in this age of the way the record industry is, you make your money from doing live shows. You do it from selling merch at the show, selling T-shirts, selling CDs and vinyl and stickers and buttons. And so in this age where, streaming doesn't really give you that much money, what's your strategy in this kind of environment? Are you thinking about doing online festivals or online shows, or linking up for other ways to promote your band? How are you doing that?
I mean, a lot of the time we've spent so far, we've basically thought about it this is our chance to be as ready to come out swinging when we have the opportunity. I mean, we have a lot of plans to We played some college shows, just shows for people who are interested in music, and getting in front of them and being ready to show them everything. Doing a lot of writing, getting tighter and preparing. Like we've done the press we're doing for these singles and trying to get them out when everybody has nothing to do at home but just consume media, whether it's music or in any other form, and like hoping we could be that person, but really just getting as ready as possible to have as much fun and play some shows when we can.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing with this podcast is like a lot of bands have been hunkered down and have been working on their projects, and I've been, helping people promote their projects all over the world. And it seems like a lot of artists are really doubling down on this downtime to tighten up their work or work on an album that maybe they would have been touring. Maybe they wouldn't have had time because they would have been doing all these shows this summer, and now they can actually finish that record in the summer rather than in the fall. Are you guys working on an EP or a project? I think I saw it in your write-up.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of stuff recorded that we're ready, like that's slated for release once we go through and make sure it's exactly what we want and that it works all out. And then sometime in the future, we'll have this stuff that we're recording soon. So just working on all the post-production stuff and trying to get stuff exactly what we want people to have on their phones and playing in their cars and everything. And make sure.
So is this downtime kind of giving you more time to look at that work than if you had to tour? Do you think you're actually able to like pay more attention to that post-production stuff than what you would have normally done, or you always kind of put that effort into it?
I mean, we've only had a chance to release and record and fully finish 2 singles so far. We're still trying to figure out what our groove is. 4 of us are still full-time college students. We're all still trying to work other jobs at the same time, and we're just using this as an opportunity to put more time into writing and perfecting what we have before we go into the studio, so we can get more done once we get there. We're still trying to figure out what our final workflow for song from write up to final production and release looks like. But right now, we're just kind of using this time to finalize a couple of songs before we get back in to Superior Sound and get more rocking. But we're not. Yeah, we're still just trying to figure out what we're doing for sure.
I feel like from when we've had songs, we've also just spent as much. It wasn't important about how long it took to get it where we wanted. We were just we need it there, and the fact that it's good and what we were looking for in the first place is important. So
So it doesn't necessarily take a long time. It's kind of if it gets there, it gets there.
Right. And when it gets there.
Yeah. Some songs are kind of more tortured than others. Some songs it's like that just happened. It's just it just comes out of the muse and you feel it, and you can look at it and it's like, well, you know what? The first 3 versions of it, the 3rd version's better than the 10th version. But it's stop. You don't need to do it. Because that's what happens. And some people it's like, well, it's got to be a better version out there. It's like maybe not.
I mean, there might be, but we don't it's not working. Yeah,
right. And then
So, are you guys thinking about doing videos to support YouTube videos or music videos for what you do? Is that something that you're entertaining?
We definitely thought about it at some point before everything kind of got flipped upside down. Talked about doing one for Lost for Words, which was our first release, and the whole COVID thing has really thrown everyone for a loop. Figure out what we want to do. I don't know if you guys have thought about this more recently, but I mean, last conversation we had was a couple weeks before Speak to Me's release. We wanted to focus on that, wanted to get it right, wanted to get it done good. And we'll probably actually start talking about that again now that, we can reach out to more people, feel a little more comfortable around people that maybe we haven't seen for a few months, things along those lines.
I mean, it's really if we feel like we have ideas for it and there are people who want to see it, we'll make them at some point. But at this point, we're really focusing on the future music to get a portfolio out there. And we've been doing some videos of covers and things just acoustically that we like playing, just so there's something for people to watch out there. I've been doing an Acoustic Wednesday series on our Instagram that we have more.
Yeah, I've been seeing that. I was just wondering if you were gonna do an official music video, work with somebody to put that.
Eventually, at some point, for sure.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot. The audience today is so kind of video primed. They're you got the people who watch YouTubers, people play video games. Everything's so visual. Instagram itself is a very visual place that that's how a lot of musicians kind of take that 1 minute that they can capture somebody's attention and put something out there to kind of trigger interest. And so it seems like that's putting something out on an Instagram, like longer term video. And now that you can do up to 15 minutes, there's a lot of bands have been taking advantage of that and finding ways to kind of reach their fan base, especially in this time, not being able to do live shows. Your process has been not really changed because you guys have been able to get to the studio. So that's kind of cool because so many bands in the last 2 months I've been talking to have been kind of really not derailed from their normal process. So it's cool to see that you weren't totally derailed from everything that was going on.
We've definitely at practice discussed like what we need to get done, because there are certain things during like a season that we're playing out a bunch. We need to make sure that we're on top of songs, keeping them tight, because we have a show next week or in the next few weeks. But now that our next show is sadly at least like 3 months away at minimum. I mean, we can't even know. There's no point to keep stuff specifically like we could play this tomorrow for an audience. It's like we should keep playing it. We love playing the songs. Like we go through our set list pretty often to make sure everything's on the tip of our tongue at least. But like the lack of pressing need for that rather is, it gives us a lot of time to do other stuff and change our process to optimize the time we have.
Longer time to write and get a song closer to that perfect that may or may not exist that we talked about.
Right. Yeah. Irons.
So when you guys play live, you've got your released music, like on Spotify, your 2 released singles. Do you have a bunch of stuff that you play that's not actually been released on any of the streaming services? It's still your own material, like a mixture of covers and your own material?
We kind of phased out covers a while ago.
Yeah.
We'll do them every now and then for like a battle of the bands where you want to hit the nostalgia for some people or something like that. But for the most part, we're anytime we play at the garage shop, anytime we play at Mahal's, it's all originals.
Oh, so you got a whole catalog, but it's not available out there.
Yeah. For us, I think we have like 12 at least. Yeah. And they're all like at different levels of how much they're like ready for recording or whatever, because they're like our favorites at the time. There are some we like started writing, but we love it all, and like playing it is a great time. And we have people who come to our shows, like especially friends who know the ones that they've never been able to hear recorded, but they're still, a fun time and everybody gets into it.
So out of that set list, how many of those songs are on the next project? Did you you culled it from that list?
Yeah, we've got 5 picked out that we'll be doing for the next round in the studio.
Yeah.
Cool. And did you kind of decide based on the audience reception, which those songs, or did you decide based on what you guys liked? Or is it a combination of audience feedback? Yeah.
Probably more what we like, though.
Yeah. And like the effort to do something organic that we keep kind of referring back to, like we just play what we are feeling like playing that show. And we think the audience is going to have the most fun if we're obviously having the most fun we can be. So we pick the set list based off of like how we're feeling and what we want to play.
And then choosing like the songs we record this next time. Like with a set list, we want it to grow and be a lot of fun. But with the recordings, we've been more thinking about like what we want it to be as a whole, as like our sound. What like we want it to come across in the best way possible, and pick the things that we have the most fun playing and enjoy the most, but also things that represent us. Yeah. So
that kind of gets to the in the way the industry is today. I was talking to a couple other bands. Everything is like single focused. Everything is like everybody has playlists, and people don't do what. When I was a kid, I go get Led Zeppelin 4, go in the basement and listen to the whole thing. I go get Pink Floyd and Hendrix, Electric Lady, and I sit in the basement and listen to the whole project. So when you're putting together a collection, are you thinking of it kind of like an album, like the way people did in the 70s, or you're kind of thinking, well, these songs just like fit together, but maybe they don't have a theme? Do you kind of think of in terms of projects as albums or similar, or things that would fit together in an album concept?
Yeah, we as a group, we are still very much album focused in what we listen to. That is a lot of us when we go to put on music. It's like, what album do I want to listen to right now? So while we have to keep in mind the balance and what would be good as a single, we definitely are trying to think as a unit. What songs go together? What should we do? How can they transition? Thinking of it in a bigger picture.
Yeah, because like Sergeant Pepper's kind of started the whole world in the concept of albums. Because in the '50s, everything was just whether you're on Motown or Stax or Reprise or any of the old labels, Columbia, things weren't really focused as albums. You had a bunch of hits that suddenly got collected and put out as an album, but it was really when you get Sergeant Pepper that suddenly you can actually look at the album as like a similar to a novel. The musician can actually present a full concept, and you get bands like Pink Floyd and Yes that expanded on that. But it's interesting to see you guys in that mindset because there's so many bands I talk to that don't, or musical acts that don't think like that anymore. Everything is kind of like single oriented or playlist oriented, and not really focused as a full concept, which is heartening because I'm still an album oriented artist myself. So I that's what I try to do, concept albums. I've been working on I Tommy and Quadrophenia in the Wall and Wish You Were Here. I mean those are the things I look toward, Fragile, Genesis albums like, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. That's kind of like, I'm a keyboardist, so I'm a progressive keyboardist, so I'm always looking for the big concept.
Yeah.
It's heartening to hear a band like yourself in this age thinking that way because, I think it's coming back in other genres. It's interesting, like in hip hop, there are a lot of albums from like Tyler the Creator and
Logic,
even Kanye West. People get those records. They're meant to be heard all the way through as a full concept. But on the top 50, there's so many bands that are not that oriented. So, do you find it's hard to kind of operate that way in the way the world is today as an artist, or you just don't care because you're just going to do what you want to do?
We definitely don't discount the single-oriented mindset, but all of us are album guys. We like the full things. We kind of try to mix both worlds together, but mainly kind of keep it on track of what we want to do, because at the end of the day, we're all doing this because we love doing it, and we want to keep loving it and keep having fun. And I know for me personally, if I had to drop the whole total album mindset and have some type of cohesive sound from song to song and work solely on like singles, I probably wouldn't like doing it as much. So we're just doing our best to mix the single orientation with the full album.
Well, I think it helps with that you guys are still in a kind of rock area.
Definitely.
I was talking to a band from Seattle. I was talking to a band from Los Angeles, played a Viper Room. So there's still these areas like, in New York, the CBGB crowd, there's still bands that are band oriented, still people who are trying to present in that way, which, it keeps me heartened because, I like new types of music and I'm not opposed to people doing, modern music with, just a PC and a CDJ and a MIDI device or something. But I've always been the kind of guy I want to go see like a fusion band, or I want to see like somebody, channeling Johnny Cash or channeling Robbie Robertson in the band because, I'm into that kind of Americana. So if I want to see somebody playing a mandolin or, actually, go to Nashville, go to Louisiana, go to New Orleans. So that's kind of where my has always been. Probably more fun or Austin than in some DJ club. But so what are your thoughts about the music industry and streaming services? Like what are the it's like a double-edged sword in some ways. I've heard people talk about, but what are your opinions about the way the industry works today?
I mean, it's definitely tough from this end, from a financial perspective, as well as even just the concept of albums. It kind of has changed the way people see that. But at the same time, we're in entertainment to entertain people, and streaming is convenient, unfortunately. So that's the way to go. And I think we all just have to adapt and figure out what the best way to operate around it is, because it's what's working for people that are trying to consume.
Yeah, I find that what it seems, it's kind of like the way the radio was for me as a kid. The radio is how I found out, college radio. Streaming kind of like the way college radio and MTV, like 120 minutes. It was just this show on MTV. They used to, you'd see Sonic Youth, or you'd see Whisker Du, or see REM, you'd see all these new bands because they gave you a way to hear them. And now that was like limited to maybe 120 minutes. You would say 2 hours on a Saturday night, or your college radio station, 2 hours, you get your favorite DJ would play all the new bands from SST or something. But now you've got like tons of bands, maybe so much music, and it's really cool, and you can hear stuff from all over the world. But then it's like, how do you differentiate yourself in a market that has that many people in it?
Right. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that these streaming services are really helpful as an advertising tool, but it's more that if we can meet people in person or through other social media means like Instagram or Facebook, and then we can point them towards the Spotify, then we get access to a big market that we might not be able to if we were just on the streaming service. So I think it's more of like a
combination strategy,
advertising toolbox.
Yeah, it's like you got to use your Instagram to kind of catch people's attention with a flashy video or something that's going to draw their attention. Bring them to your Spotify, bring them to your Tidal, bring them to your Apple Music, whatever service you're on, and then get them to go to the show, and then sell them a T-shirt, then sell them the vinyl, then sell them the merch, and that's how you really make the connections with the bloggers and all the PR people, and if you can, get. I think a lot of musicians today are finding out they have to do sync licensing. They got to get into, working on other people's records, and just connecting with, in a scene or getting into a collective. Like a lot of bands I've been talking to, like in Europe, in Germany, and like Norway and the Netherlands, there's all these like electronica collectives of guys who are like synth heads, and we're guesting in on each other's records. And we're working with all the producers, and then we get, suddenly people in Tokyo know about, the Ghost, or I know about some other guy, and we've been guesting on each other's records, and then you build in a community, and it's kind of like, it's just a scene thing. It's like what the Dead used to do, except it's through the net. I think that's what you gotta do. You gotta find new places to connect as a musician, and new ways to get your music out there.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to actually work with anybody on a project yet, but that's another one of the great things about where we're located, and the rock scene around here is really great. So we've gotten to meet a bunch of super cool bands and make new connections to play new shows with or promote each other's music. So it's one of the great things about Cleveland.
Yeah. So do you think that's in your future? You'd ever in the hip hop world, there's like the feature is like very popular where guys will guest on each other's stuff, and like in electronica and stuff, it tends to happen a lot. Have you guys looked into that, or because you're focused on kind of getting your brand and your band, into a cohesive unit, that you're not really focused on trying to do that type of coordination with other artists yet?
We've talked about like if there's a certain sound we hear or like a certain voice that we really like we'll kind of know if there's someone we want to collaborate with. But like we're very open to it, but obviously like we're doing our own brand thing, and someday we'll hear someone's voice and be like, we need to pair them with Nick and Mac and see like what happens. But until until it really hits us in the face, I think we're like open to it, but not haven't seen
Not
anything
actively
that's like,
looking for
yeah,
it,
right.
Seeking for it.
I mean,
Yeah, you just got your first two singles out, so you're probably focusing on your first record and your EP and getting out there.
We're a big enough name that we might be able to get someone to work with us, or we're worth working on someone else's project for.
we really want to work with
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
music we want to make. Right now, that's been our music, and then at some point, if we hear something that we want to try and whatever, we'll go there and just try to make whatever makes us happiest and is the most fun at every turn.
So it's been really great to talk to you guys. It's what I like to do is as you guys get closer to your next project, we like to have bands come on and have like release episodes where we talk about like a full record, because a lot of times we've had episodes where we actually premiere an artist's full record and then kind of talk out through that whole project. So once you guys if you feel that would be cool, we could schedule that when you guys are ready to put that out.
Awesome. Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, thank you. We've been live streaming on Facebook on my channel, and we're going to send you the link. And this is actually also going to go on Anchor FM, which is our sister network. It's going to go there as a audio podcast only, and from there it will go out to 11 platforms on the net. They include Spotify podcast, Apple, and Amazon, and almost Radio Public, Overcast, Stitcher, many more. So we're going to hit the whole podcast area as hard as we can. We even get it to YouTube eventually. We have to do a conversion to get to YouTube, but eventually sometime this week we'll be on YouTube as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I look forward to listening to your records. I mean, I love the two singles that I've been able to hear, and your stuff that's on your Instagram channel is pretty cool. So I encourage everyone to go out to I got the link up there for your link tree. So everybody click on that link and get into Sticky however you want to. Thank you very much for being on the show, and we'll talk to you again sometime. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.